Welcome and thank you for joining us today. My name is Tina Jacobin. I'm the Assistant Director of Donor and Alumni Relations here at Shenandoah. At the end of our session today, we're going to be giving away three $25 gift cards. I hope you can stay for the entire session so that you can be a part of that prize giveaway. We're grateful for our title sponsor, the Winchester Army National Guard, for their support in making the entire symposium a reality. In addition, our Zoom sessions this week are being sponsored by First Bank. Thank you, First Bank, and all of our sponsors for helping making the symposium possible through your financial support. In addition to sponsoring our event, many of our sponsors are providing session content, and for that, we are also very grateful. Today, our session is on the topic of finances. Welcome to our financial boot camp. We have three wonderful banking professionals here today, and each one is about to share information that I think you'll find very beneficial. First, oh, I did this in wrong order there. Hold on here. Did I let that person in? They're in. Our first today, we're going to hear from Matt Laird, but we're also going to hear from Candace Davenport. Candace is the AVP Banking Center Manager for our First Bank in Winchester, Virginia. Candace has worked in the banking industry for almost 30 years. She attended Lord Fairfax Community College and University of Virginia's Virginia Banker School of Bank Management. Candace currently serves on the board of directors for the Fremont Street Nursery, Douglas Alumni Association, and the Museum of the Shenandoah Valley. She's also been a member of the Sinclair Health Clinic and Habitat for Humanity's board of directors. Matt Laird is also going to speak to us today. He is a dual branch manager for the United Bank in Winchester, Virginia. He also serves as the Community Reinvestment Act Action Committee representative for the Winchester market. And in this role, Matt is charged with creating partnerships with area nonprofits to ensure the bank serves every community member with a focus on spreading financial literacy knowledge to Winchester and Frederick County residents. Matt holds a bachelor's of Business Administration from Shenandoah University. We're also going to hear from Sylvia Jones of Wells Fargo. Sylvia is the Vice President of Campus Program Manager for the Wells Fargo at Work program. In this position, she works with colleges and universities to provide financial wellness to their faculty, staff, and students. She has a bachelor's degree in economics from Utah State University and an MBA from Western State Colorado University. So thank you all for joining us today. We're so glad to have you. And just to let you all know, we are going to open up for Q&A after each session. So if you do have any questions, jot them down and be sure to ask our panelists. They'd be happy to share that with you. So I'm going to go ahead and pass the Zoom mic to Matt Laird. Matt, if you want to take it away and start with our session today, we'll be glad to hear what you have to say.
All right, well, thank you, Tina, and thank you, everybody, for having me. I'm excited to be here with you today. Before I get started, I think something to keep in mind, one of the most valuable things you all will get from this meeting will be the questions that you ask and the answers that we give you. We learn most from the conversation we have. Now, I'm going to have a PowerPoint. And I urge you, please, to just don't raise your hand because I won't see it, but just unmute yourself and yell out a question or yell out a comment while I'm droning away there. So we might be able to spark a conversation that brings us in the other direction, but ultimately helps us learn something. So as Tina said, I am a graduate of Shenandoah University. I went to Shenandoah for the last 2 years of my undergraduate degree. And I paid for school through a mixture of grants, scholarships, student loans, and savings I had that I had saved up in my early 20s. I graduated with enough student loans where I could have bought a very nice car had I had the same amount in cash, and I would have been feeling real nice driving down the street. I moved into United Bank. I'm now, as Tina said, a dual branch manager for United Bank. I lead a team of 9 bankers. I manage a relationship asset size of over $90 million. I'm also a licensed life, health, and annuities producer, meaning I have lots of conversations with my clients regarding retirement, savings, and what they want to do with their money in the long term. Now, all that being said, wasn't, to try to impress you, but to tell you that just a few short years ago, I graduated with a boatload of student debt. And the same conversations I was having with my friends then, with the concepts of how you manage your money, your personal financial life, and your savings in particular, are the same conversations that I now have and get paid a very good living to have with high net worth individuals. So savings and having lots of retirement and being successful financially is not a pie in the sky idea just for high net worth individuals. It's for everybody. So I want you to know that the same things and basic concepts I'll give you today are exactly what I tell my clients at the bank. So as I go through, I really want you just to take a few basic, big concepts I'm going to present to you, and additional little information in between I'll give you as well. And the first one is that you guys are very lucky to be at Shenandoah University, a very close-knit network of people who are all there to help you. And you have a larger Winchester community there to help you as well. And that certainly has to do with the financial services industry. So I'm going to share my screen and start going through my presentation. And again, like I said, please interrupt me anytime. Let's see here. All right, so as I said, you guys are lucky to have a network at Shenandoah University of helpers. So I want you to write this down or maybe save it. That's both my work email and my SU email. And again, as I said, the questions you ask are where you're going to learn the most. So please feel free to reach out to me at any time for any sort of advice, knowing that I'm now a financial services professional, and I just very recently was in the exact same shoes that you are. So Tina asked me to focus mostly on savings today, and that's what I will do. So savings. Why do we always talk about savings? Why do we need to think about it? Well, very simply, everything you're going to do in your life costs money. If you don't have money, if you don't have savings, there's not many things you can do. Now, again, a lot of people think savings is retirement. Savings is for my parents, my grandparents. It's for 50 years down the road from now. But starting to save now will help you live your life in the very near future. So right after graduation, think about the things you will need money for and why you will need savings to accomplish those things. So after graduation, you want to move into an apartment. Well, you're going to need your first month's, your last month's, and a security deposit. That's going to run you a few $1,000s. If you don't have the savings already that you started in college, it's going to be very tough to get the apartment. You want to buy a house. Not many loan programs will allow you to buy a house without quite a few $1,000s of cash down. Where do you get that cash? From your savings. Buying a car, more cash down. Going on vacation, that costs money. That just doesn't come out of nowhere. Must come from your savings. And finally, that big, long, several decades from now thing where once you, just a few years out of school and you're my age, you realize it's coming up a lot quicker than you think, retirement. Because not all of us want to work forever. Sometimes we want to retire to a nice beach, get a nice margarita at maybe 11 in the morning and not have to worry about anything. How do you do that? Start saving now so you can do that. Again, just to visualize, even a little studio apartment, you're going to need down payment, house, down payment. Lastly, savings. We see it now, emergencies. Life is going to come at you fast as you go through your 20s and 30s and on. Things will come up that are not expected. Perfect example, COVID-19. Nobody saw that coming. And certainly from a banker's perspective, we all three of us here presenting to you today saw the devastation that it had on our business owners and our employees, and how despite having great jobs, all of a sudden through no fault of their own, they had no income coming in. And if you have no savings and no income, you have no money. Can't pay your rent, can't pay your mortgage, car payment, food. Another thing that, many of you, because I know you grew up, many of you in Northern Virginia, probably remember the recent government shutdown in 2018. Well, in banking, what we did, here in the Winchester market, we have a lot of individuals who work for the federal government, and they make over $100,000 and they live in the Winchester market. That means they pay the very low Winchester real estate cost of living. But when these government employees had the government shut down, they came to me. I bet Candace has the same exact stories where they said, hey, I make $100,000 a year, but the government is shut down. I can't pay any of my bills. So these were very high earning individuals who all of a sudden couldn't pay their bills. Now, had they started saving at your age, knowing that anything could happen, they would have had, something to fall back on, and they would have been prepared for this kind of emergency. So that's why savings. Now, let's talk about how you might start approaching savings and the basic concepts, big concepts that will help you not only in any of your financial management, but certainly help you in developing savings. So, big thing, how do you approach savings? Well, what do you value? What do you want to do in life? What do you want to spend your money on? Once you decide that, you can then decide, well, I need to save my money for what I value. So I won't spend it on an expensive car because I want to buy a nice house for my family. I won't spend it on going out to eat every day because I want to go to graduate school, which costs quite a lot of money. So whatever you do in life, and certainly your financial life, you must understand what you value and how you want to live your life. Goals. You can't make a plan. You can't do anything without knowing where it's going, because what's the point of doing anything if you don't have a outcome? And certainly when it comes to money, don't make a financial decision without understanding how it gets you to your goals. And of course, your goals are going to be very closely related to what you value. Next, this is the biggest thing. If you can understand wants versus needs, whether you're a business owner, whether you're a banker, whether you're a financial analyst, whether you're a conservatory musician, you understand wants versus needs, everything else in your financial life will be a breeze for you. Because want versus need tells you what you spend your money on, what you save your money on, and what you don't spend your money on. A need, you need a car. Buying a nice car, that's a want. Although quite a good bit of the revenue from my bank comes from auto loans, purchasing a vehicle is the worst investment you can ever make. So any business students out there, any economic students will understand the maximum return on investment for a vehicle is its utility, because you use a vehicle. And if it gets you from A to B in a safe manner, that's important. That's the maximum value that car can have. And unlike a house where you buy it today, sell it from 10 years from now, make some money, your car will only decrease in value and cost you more and more money. So the want versus need is, well, I need a car to get to work. I need a car to get to everywhere. I want a BMW, but then you ask yourself, okay, when I'm driving that BMW to work, does it give me any more value? Does it have any more utility than a Mazda would when it gets me to work? It doesn't. And I'll be honest with you, I still drive a 2007 Mazda 3. I haven't had a car payment on that thing in over 10 years. And it gets me to the bank just as quickly as my colleagues who might have a Mercedes or a BMW, except I'm not getting a speeding ticket, my insurance is lower, and I don't have a car payment. Apologies to anybody who owns a BMW or Mercedes. No one's so, needed. Another want versus need, and deciding on what you spend your money on. Coffee. See, I value certain things in life. What I value, as I said, I don't value cars. I don't value house or status. I have a very tiny little one bedroom here in downtown Winchester. Drive a 2007 Mazda 3. What I value are certain things like coffee. I am one of those people who spends $3 a day on coffee. And I will tell you, do not do that. That is a bad financial decision. But I am making it because that's what I value. Another thing I value, and another thing that is the reason that savings are a right now kind of idea, not in the future, is spending time with my friends and family. And I spend my money on vacation and experiences. So I drive an old car. I live in a tiny little house. I don't go out to eat much, but what I really like and what I decided was a goal of mine and what I valued was having experiences. So let's see. I had two pictures. Both are trips that I went on almost right after graduation. And remember, I was not working when I was at SU. I had student loan debt. I didn't make money my last senior year, but I was able to, because of the savings and the conservative financial decisions. Top picture from a golf course in Ireland when I went to Ireland, and cost quite a lot of money. Bottom is a trip that I went on with my buddies. We went backpacking through Alaska. No way could I have ever afforded either one of those experiences had I not saved money and had I not made objective, specific financial decisions on what I spent my money on. All right, how do you save? Just like dieting, losing weight. Watch what you do, what comes in versus what goes out, and change happens over time. So 2 years ago, I lost around 50 pounds. Now, with COVID, may or may not have come back, but that's neither here nor there. What I did was lose that 50 pounds because I was managing what was coming in. The easiest thing to do when you're losing weight is to control what you're eating. It's harder to control how much you exercise because that's time. With finances, with savings, flip them. The easiest thing to control is the money going out. Now, I know there's a, later in this symposium, there's a session that I'm probably going to try to attend regarding salary negotiation. So what I'll tell you, in your financial life, it is much harder to control the money coming in than the money going out. It's a lot easier to decrease how much you spend than to increase how much you make. All right, how do you save? Control your spending. Right there. That's the easiest number one thing you can do. Control your spending. Auto transfers. Make it easy on yourself. So, banks have it. Online banking. I know you guys probably haven't even been inside a bank in years. I know I hadn't been in a bank in years until I got hired at one. But through your online banking, you can set up auto transfers where you just forget that every week you're transferring $50 to savings. 10 years down the line, you have thousands of dollars that you forgot about. Direct deposit, that's where, with auto transfers, you get a job, has direct deposit, you're allowed to choose, okay, 80% goes to my checking, 80% goes to my savings, or 20% rather goes to my savings. I suggest you do that because it takes the effort off of you. 401k or a 403b if you work for a nonprofit. This is just like savings. You need to start this plan as early as you can, because like I said, it's much harder to control how much money you make. So you need to start saving earlier so you have reserves. I'm going to show you a graph. It gets a little bit into the weeds, but I think it will be a good explanation as to why you all need to do as much as you can to contribute to any 401k that you have, because the way that the economy has gone with inflation and wages and cost of living, what we earn today simply is not keeping up with the prices and how they're increasing. Another way to save, and I'll touch on this at the end, is managing your credit correctly. I like to tell my clients to stay cash rich. If you're able to do it responsibly, for all your big purchases, use other people's money. Keep your own money to yourself. All right, so the graph I was talking about, it gets a little in the weeds. On the left, I want you to look at the yellow line is the average wages and how they've increased since 1964. The top line is the purchasing power. So how much you could buy for that hourly wage. Now, as you can see, $2.50 in 1964 was the same thing as making $20.27 an hour today. Now, I will tell you, from being a banker and from working with a lot of SU students, $20.27 an hour is a very good starting wage coming right out of college. A little different if you're in the nursing program or the PA program, but that's just about what you can expect to have should you have had a good college career. Now, as we go up, we see as the pay has gone up, the purchasing power has stayed the same. That top line, had everything been going right, should be going up with the bottom line. So pretty much what I'm saying today is, if you get out of college, we're looking at the very right end of the graph, and you're making $22.65 an hour, the amount of money you have and your ability to live in the world is as if you were making minimum wage in 1964. So again, with the way everything's going, you're never going to make enough money to overcome not having savings. It's just simply the way of the world. Now, you as young people certainly have the ability to get out into the voting electorate and, lobby your elected officials, but I won't go into that too much further. So change can happen, and you can be the vehicle for that change. But right now we're gonna play with the way the world is. So the graph on the right, very simply, is a illustration of had you started a 401k at age 36 and how it would have grown over time up to age 65. And you see the biggest growth there is the red. The red represents market growth. And that's you don't have to do anything. Your money just grows by itself, and your employer is the facilitator for that. So again, if you have the option to do a 401k, sign up for it day one at your job. All right. Lastly, I run through this quickly. Credit basics. The easiest way to develop savings is to have good credit, because that means rather than deplete your savings when you buy a car, you can take a loan out and hold on to that cash. Rather than putting 25 grand in cash down to buy a car, you put 4 grand in cash down, take out a loan for the rest, and you hold on to other 21 grand for a future emergency. I really like this little, graphic. It's a United Bank graphic, and it sums it up perfectly. What is your credit score? It's your financial GPA. Pretty much, how trustworthy are you with other people's money? I like to tell people, well, it's as if, you lend your friend 30 bucks and then they don't, pay you back. Well, you might forgive your friend, but I'll tell you what, banks will not forgive you. Lenders will not forgive you. So if you take a loan out, you take a credit card out, and you do not make those payments, that's going to haunt you for 10 years. So in terms of building credit, the easiest thing to do is always make your payments. As we look at what goes into a credit score, 35% is payment history. I suggest you start as early as possible with the smallest possible credit card. Use it just very, very responsibly with just weekly expenses, 20, 30 bucks maybe. Pay it off immediately. Don't ever carry a balance. That will build your credit score. So a few years out of college, you'll have the requisite credit score in that green range there to buy that car, to buy that house. Again, the easier to get credit is, the more cash you're going to have in your pocket. Use it for smart credit. I think I went through autos. In my opinion, cars are horrible investments. If we're talking about credit and making investments to create savings, a house is the easiest way to build savings over time if you're using your credit responsibly. So that's about all I have to say. I really welcome any questions you have. I know I threw a lot at you. Again, I told you I go over some basic things that everything else I threw at you, the graphs, the numbers, you can forget them. If you can remember these things, you will be set. Setting your goals, deciding what you value in life, and then deciding what your wants and needs are, and tailoring your financial activity to those 3 values. I think everything will be a piece of cake.
Well, thank
Any
you, Matt.
questions you have?
Yeah, I was just gonna repeat that. Does anybody have any questions for Matt on any of this material? No, we don't have a chatty group here with us today. Well, I'm going to go ahead and pass the Zoom mic over to Candace. Candace is going to talk to us on financial literacy. She's with First Bank. Take it away, Candace.
I guess it helps if I turn my mic on. I prepared a slideshow, but I like to just kind of talk about things. So I am with First Bank, and I've been with First Bank for this year will be 7 years, and I've been in banking for over 30 years, as Tina had said earlier in the bio. I love banking, and I think most of all it's because I'm dealing with people and trying to help them in whatever situation they have. And Matt had a lot of good things that he said when he was talking about savings, and it's part of financial literacy. When I talk about savings, I tell people it's a way to create wealth. So it's another way for you to look at things about how you're going to create that wealth and not spend all of your money or available cash that you have, which might seem like a foreign concept if you have student loans and things that you have to deal with right out of college. But it is important to create that wealth and take advantage of opportunities that are presented when you are employed. So financial literacy, it's more than balancing a checkbook. It's you're comparing prices when you get a job, how you talk about salary negotiations. It includes long-term visioning and planning for the future. And, Matt talked about what his values were as far as, he valued going on vacations. So he's driving the car that gets him where he needs to go. But those things that are valuable to him that he saves for so that he can enjoy those things. So when you're out and about and he talked about coffee. So how many times do you look at your checkbook, or if you look at your statements to see what you're spending your money on? How many times do you go into Starbucks, and how many times do you hit up Chick-fil-A or Panera or things like that? So all those things that you're doing are a way for you to create your wealth. So I'm going to talk a little bit about managing your checking accounts if you have it. I'm sure you do, and what that looks like. I'm a little bit old-fashioned because I do online banking and I have my app on my phone, but I also use a check register. And so, money coming in and money going out, sometimes I may forget what I'm spending my money on. And that's the easiest way for you to mess up your checkbook. And when you talk about messing up your checkbook, if you don't balance that right, it could cost you. So if you've written a check or you've made a purchase with your debit card and you haven't accounted for that in your checkbook and your register, however you keep track of it, it could cost you, for First Bank, $36 for each item that hits your account. So think about that when you're out and you're spending your money, and you might pull up your phone and you look at your app and say, yep, I've got money. Things to consider when you do that is when you make a purchase with your debit card, the merchant, although they want to get their money, they don't always upload those transactions as quickly as you're looking at your app to see where your money is going. So make sure that you're accounting for everything that you're spending so that you don't get in the position of having overdrafts. And that can just create a domino effect. So I've seen recently where $1.99 purchase cost a customer $72 because he had other items coming in. So I can't stress enough how to manage your checkbook and to keep track of your spending. And again, it goes back to what Matt says, you're creating wealth. If you're watching how you spend that money and you're not causing any fees, then you can start putting away some of that money. And think about what is important to you. If it's the coffee or this, Chick-fil-A or Subway or whatever it is, think of ways that you can kind of control that spending. Some of the biggest mistakes that I see when managing your checking accounts, again, are not taking care of making sure you have enough money in the account to cover your purchases, transposing your figures. So if you're making a purchase and it's $36 and you write down $46, or you're just not keeping track of that spending, then that's an error. Sometimes you kind of just like, maybe it's a few cents. What my dad used to do was, if he made a $15.98 purchase, he'd take out $16 out of his account. So he always had a cushion in his account. If you're like me and you want to balance your checkbook to the penny, it's going to drive you crazy. But there's a cushion that you've created in your account. I also like to say to my students and anybody that I'm dealing with is to have that secondary source of income. So whether it is a savings account, a credit card, something that if you get into trouble, you've got something to rely on. For our checking account, you can have a savings account, you can attach those two, so that if in the instance that you overdraw your account, the money's going to pull from your savings account. That's going to save you some fees. And then you can come back and say, okay, let me figure this out, where you went wrong. But that secondary source of income is going to help you down the road. So if you're forgetting to write things down in your checking account, you've always got that savings account that can sweep over into your checking account, or the credit card if you have to use it. Another mistake we see is, you got to get to the bank and make a deposit. Well, do that. Make sure you know what your bank's cutoff times are. So get there before 6 o'clock so that when processing happens, the next day you're not hit with a fee and you'll say, but I made it to the bank. Well, you didn't make it in time. And this is where I like to talk about as well, is to have a relationship with your banker. A lot of things are done online. So it's really easy, it's convenient, it's the way that a lot of people like to do business. But I like to have a relationship with my banker so that if you're on the road and you're traveling and you call me and say, oh my gosh, Candace, I have a deposit in my pocket and I forgot to stop by the bank. Well, when those items hit, I'm not going to return them to who you paid it to. I'm going to pay them. It's still going to cost you a fee. And in some instances, if you have a relationship, I might say, don't worry about the fee. I'll cover it. I'll refund those fees to you, but make sure you get that money in the bank. Had you not had a relationship with your banker and not made a phone call, we don't know what your situation is. So, think about, yes, you like to bank online and you use your apps, but get to know your banker, visit, give them a call sometimes. Any questions that people have, and I tell them, I had a lady email me the other day and she wanted to talk about getting a new car. And again, not an investment, but it was a necessary thing for her. But she wanted to talk about the best way to do that. And I was able to offer her some suggestions and we talked about it. So I'm not just there to open up an account, to do a loan, whether it's a car loan or when you get to your house and you have equity in your home, I do home equity lines of credit, but also to be an advisor for you, somebody that you can talk to and say, how do I do this? So I like to be that person. And we're a community bank and we do have lots of banks in Winchester. And I feel like all of the bankers that I know, regardless of what institution it is, whether it's United or Wells Fargo, everyone that you'll encounter is friendly and they want to help you. So just keep that in mind. But the biggest thing is, should you find yourself in a situation that it could cost you some money, you have somebody that you can pick up the phone and talk to. And you probably don't write checks. I don't know, I was going to share my screen on this one to write a check. But I don't know, everybody's got their mic closed, so I don't know if they even write checks anymore. But when you do write a check, it's important to know how to write that check. And let me see if I can share this. I'll lose my share screen. Here it is. And I don't know if you guys can see my screen or not. Nope.
I don't see it yet.
Okay. Let's see here.
Oh, there you go.
There's it. All right. So I'm going to go down here to, now when I talked about a register, That's a check register. Not many people know what that is, but that's check register. Whoops, and it went away. Sorry. Technical difficulties here. Let's see. And Tina, am I sharing my screen again?
Yeah, we can see your
Okay.
screen.
Okay, thank you. But that's a check register. That's what I use to keep my checkbook, make sure I don't make any mistakes, anything like that. So, but writing a check, let's go there. So when you're writing a check, you know, there are important things that you have to put on that check. The date, of course, to whom you're making it payable. Number 3, where you see the dollar amount. The most important thing that we're going to look at as a banker is line 4. So if those two don't match, we're going to go by what it says on line 4. That is the legal line. And that's where I see a lot of people. We'll have people come to the bank and someone has issued them a check and it might say $1,500 in number, in the numerical part of it, but they might have written $15. We have to cash it for 15. Or we give it back to the customer and they say, oh, wait a minute, now let me take this back. So just a way of writing checks, like I said, you guys may not ever write checks, but when you start paying rent or car payments or things like that, there might be an opportunity for you to write a check. So just wanted to show that to you. The other thing that you want to consider, and I think, Matt, you probably touched on this, is when you're talking about a budget and how you're spending your money and things to incorporate into that budget. You know, and again, when Matt said there's one more cash in or less spending. And so you've got to figure out what it is you want to do. But the items that you need to think about when you're budgeting is you got your rent, your food, transportation. If you have a vehicle, it's not just putting gas in the car and making it go. You've got to consider oil changes and the maintenance of the car, insurance, unless your parents are paying insurance, depending on your age. But there are a lot of things to consider, your clothing and your fun and entertainment. And so when you create your budget, the first thing that I've always done is put money in my savings account, because that's where my wealth is. And if I don't do it, no one else is going to do it for me. So again, going back to what Matt said, take advantage of your 401k. When you get employed and the employer offers it, it's the easiest thing. I mean, that's money they're giving you. So put it away for future. And if you've got student loans, you're going to budget those items in as well. I forgot to set the timer, Tina, so I'm not sure where I am.
You're probably right at, I didn't set it either, but you're probably right at 10 minutes. So
Okay.
You're probably good to open it up for Q&A
Okay.
now. Unless you had some pressing thing you wanted to share.
Nope, I think that's going to be it. But I am open to questions. I appreciate the opportunity to share with you guys. And I am on 1835 Valley Avenue. So we're First Bank, a 2-story brick building at the corner of Jubal Early and Valley Avenue. Don't have to bank with me to ask a question. So I'm always open to questions. I always like to help if I can. So I'm just gonna stop talking and open the floor for any questions that you guys might have.
I have a question. So I barely write checks, but is it important to have checks just in case?
So I would say yes, because there are times when, if you need something and your debit card doesn't work and you can't get to your bank to get a debit card, but you need to make a purchase and you're not using a credit card, then you have the check as a means of paying that, whatever it is that you're going to make a purchase. So I write maybe one check every now and then, very rarely. I just had to pay taxes, so I had to write a check. But I wanted to write that check so I could have my proof that I made that payment. So it is another way of keeping track of items that you've paid. If you don't have a receipt, then your check is your receipt. So I say yes, just have it just in case. Thank you for the question.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Candace?
Can I just say that I want to underscore, I'm sorry I didn't do it. I'm a banker. I should have said it as well. But what Candace said about getting to know your banker, especially as a young person, that is invaluable. We are able to give advice to help to connect you to the right people. And unlike an attorney or a therapist, we're not going to charge you an hourly rate to help you. We're just going to help you. And that's what we're here to do. So that, I think no matter who you go to, First Bank, United, Wells Fargo, you'll have people who are there to help you, and it's going to cost you nothing. So.
And we want to help. I mean, what we've learned along the way is invaluable. So it doesn't cost you a thing, just some time. But we like to see people, even in the midst of COVID and how we're banking now. So thank you, Matt. I appreciate that.
I can say, before I introduce Sylvia, I can say, speaking from experience, that if I've ever gotten myself into trouble where like I didn't carry that one and I overdrafted my account, it is so important to be able to call the bank and give them a heads up. If they see you're not a repeat offender with making mistakes, they will help you out. And I know my daughter, she if she makes a mistake, that's the hardest thing. She doesn't like to ask questions and she doesn't like to ask for help. But it could save you a lot of money if you do find yourself in a situation where you make a mistake. And like I said, you're not a repeat offender, give them a call. And it does help to have a relationship, even if, before you go to buy a car, and we're going to talk about this tomorrow on the big purchase, but it doesn't hurt to call your banker and figure out how much you can afford. Like they'll tell you honestly, like, this is what this loan is going to cost you. This is what you're going to pay in fees. And it doesn't hurt to talk to them first and see if you're, before you even go down that road. It is great to go in and know what you are going to be spending before you sign on the dotted line. Because once you get in the car, you get all wrapped up. And if you don't know how much it's going to cost you monthly, and car dealers are real good at getting you in there, getting you feeling really good about it. And then before you know it, you're paying way more for that car than you thought you would. So, but anyway, enough on that. Those are the mistakes that I've made in life. I just want to share them with you.
I'll piggyback on that because, excuse me, when we look at that, we're not pulling your credit. So you're not getting a credit hit. We can offer you information without pulling your credit that will affect your score to say, here's what the range would be, here's what you would pay for the car, and also give you an amortization table that shows you how much you're going to pay for that car in the end if you take the amount of time that 5 years, 4 years, whatever it is. So I would say to call your bank before you make a purchase and you get a credit hit.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're going to go ahead now and pass the mic over to Sylvia Jones from Wells Fargo. She's going to talk to us on healthy habits in banking and finances.